Welcome to the American Institute of Architects Kansas City Chapter's Legends and Leaders program. This series highlights AIA architects and others that have helped shape our community, lead the AIA, and mentor a new generation of designers. Joy Swallow initiated her university activities as a practicing architect. She initially taught the foundation studios for students entering in the architecture, interior architecture, product design, landscape architecture, and urban planning and design programs. In 1987, she founded the Architectural Studies program, a collaboration between the University of Missouri Kansas City and the College of Architecture, Planning, and Design at Kansas State University. The innovative program groomed first and second year UMKC students for the rigors of the K-State Architectural program, which has been routinely ranked among the nation's top programs. In 2001, Joy created the undergraduate degree program in urban planning and design. It was one of 4 university undergraduate programs in the U.S. that incorporated design into the planning curriculum. Under Professor Swallow's leadership, the Department of Architecture, Urban Planning and Design was committed to working in the community since its inception. One of only 6 universities, UMKC was honored with the President's Award from the President's Higher Education Community Service Corporation in 2008. The department was awarded the Chancellor's Award for Excellence in Community Engagement in 2016, as well as the UMKC Trustees Award for Excellence in Community Engagement in 2017. The Kansas City chapter of the AIA recognized her contributions by naming Joy its Educator of the Year in 2009. She was elevated to Fellow in the American Institute of Architects in 2011. The University of Missouri System honored her with the Presidential Leadership Award in 2012. Joy Swallow is an exemplary leader who envisions and develops unique educational programs in architecture and design. Her significant contributions to the profession, the academy, and her community ensures opportunities will endure for future generations. Joy received a Bachelor of Architecture degree from Kansas State University and a Master's of Architecture and a Historic Preservation Certificate from the University of Pennsylvania. Let's meet Joy.
Hello and welcome to another installment of the AIA Legacy and Leader Series. I'm here with Professor Joy Swallow, who served as Department Chair at the University of Missouri Kansas City School of Architecture. Joy, thank you so much for joining us. It is a pleasure to be sitting here with you as a former student. I am really excited to be that you're joining us today, so thank you so much.
Excellent.
So Joy, can you tell us about your background? What got you interested in becoming an architect?
Yeah, I was in 4-H, and 4-H was, you could do just about anything from cooking, sewing, and they had an interior design competition at the fair, and I did the rec room, and I directed my father on how to make things, and that was probably the first introduction. My dad was always interested in going to open houses. And then in high school, I decided that I would take drafting because I was interested in architecture. And I was the only girl, and it was, the teacher was the coach, football coach, and I was the only girl. And I was determined that I was going to get an A. And I did so many extra credit plates, and I can still remember those little red circles when there was an error in line quality. And I did fan blades and bolt heads. And I decided at that point that I really didn't like architecture, if that was what it was. And I think it wasn't a very good introduction. However, I did learn a lot of, I learned how to draw. And I learned how to think 3-dimensionally. So there were things that came out of that were good. The guys wouldn't talk to me. I was like a foreign object in the classroom. So that was the introduction. And when I went to college, I decided that I would major in political science. And I was on the honor roll, and I did a whole year. And I thought, I have no passion for this. And so I went back to my initial idea. Math was not my favorite subject, and that always made me nervous. But I went in and talked to Eugene Kramer and decided that I think I'm going to change majors. And I didn't miss a beat. I did summer school, studio. Fayez Husseini was my instructor, and that was where I launched.
Wow. Where did you go to school?
I went to Kansas State University, and I also went to the University of Pennsylvania for a master's and a certificate in historic preservation.
Excellent. Joy, can you tell us about your early career and any interesting projects that come to light?
Early career was spent at Barbermere and Hecker in Omaha, Nebraska was my first job. And I did everything from churches to big and tall men. Big and tall men gave me the opportunity to do contracts and travel all over the Midwest doing big and tall men stores. It was interesting. Then I went on to Arthur Cotton Moore in Georgetown on the East Coast. And Arthur was in the middle of doing Harbor Place, which was right on the Potomac. Big project, very interesting. And from there, I went to Joan Fabre, who had been an associate with Arthur Cotton Moore. She set out with her own firm in Washington, D.C., and it was all women, which was my first experience at having all women. In fact, my education at Kansas State University, I hate to say there wasn't one woman professor there. So that was my first introduction to having all women. Yeah, that's all.
Wow.
And then after that, I went to the University of Pennsylvania, and I wanted to teach. And that contact with Kansas State University, they said, hey, there's this opportunity to start this program. And moved here in 1987, started the program. And when I arrived, no one had done any recruitment, and I had 5 students. I was hired in August, and it started in August. So 5 students, and none of them made it to the next year. So I spent the whole year doing recruitment, and we had 25 on the next year. And from there, we were sort of on our way.
Very interesting. So, and that leads into my next question. You were instrumental in the establishment of the UMKC Architectural Studies program. Can you expand on what attracted you to this opportunity?
Yes, I had done a studio assistant when I was in 5th year at K-State. And the other huge influence on my career was my father. My father was a professor of agronomy at Kansas State University, and he adored his job. And I thought, if I can find a job that even halfway satisfied me, I would be a happy person. So, you know, lots of sitting around the table. I knew what a good department chair was and what a bad dean was. I heard it all. And so that was what I set out to do when we moved to the East Coast, was to go back to graduate school, and that led me to University of Pennsylvania. So when this opportunity opened up, I thought, well, there's nothing that's happened before. This is an opportunity to make it what I think it should be. I had a great partnership too with Kansas State University, and had lots of people that were very supportive in helping set in motion what happened at UMKC.
I can say, as being a product of that educational curriculum and degree, I find it amazing that, you know, the work that you did in the initial period and what led to so many successful architects in AI Kansas City and beyond. So yeah. I'd like to say thank you for that.
Well, you're welcome, and that gives me the greatest joy, actually.
I can edit that out.
Joy, the UMKC program has been actively involved in supporting regional design and planning initiatives. Can you highlight some of your favorite initiatives?
There's been architectural and planning initiatives. Looking through my resume before sitting down, I knew that UMKC, in order to be recognized, needed to have some sort of outward reach. And we did giant kites in the middle of Ties Park. We did dog houses in the manner of different architects working with different organizations. So it really started early on. I had a dean tell me, you know, you live larger than you are. And that was my intention from the beginning. And then in 2001, I put together a proposal for an urban planning and design degree program. And then I think it morphed into planning and design initiatives. I think there were multiple ones that I'm really proud of. The one that overarching favorite would be the interdisciplinary projects that we did. So we would pick a site in Kansas City, and the architects would design a house. The second-year architects would do an institutional building. The urban planning and design students would do an urban design overlay and all of that. And there would even be urban planning courses that would do data research. And then at the end of all of that, the planners would present to the architects what the neighborhood was like, what were some of the issues that the neighborhood was dealing with. So overarching, that would be something that I was pretty proud of. I think the other one is Center for Neighborhoods, developed out of the Urban Planning and Design program. Specifically, Professor Wagner was instrumental in getting it started. It was funded out of Jefferson City, which is amazing unto itself. And it has grown and increased its capacity over time. They have different neighborhood leaders from neighborhoods in Kansas City come together for 12-week courses where they go from how to find data online through the city, what are the resources in terms of something that needs to be done in their neighborhood, where can you find funding. It was across the board in developing leadership in those communities. So the other one, I have many, the other one was the work that we did in New Orleans. Professor Wagner came out of New Orleans with his PhD, and when Katrina hit, I can still remember sitting with only 3 of us at the time, and him saying, I have to do something. I know the lay of the land, if you will, in New Orleans, and they need help. So he wrote a grant through the HUD and was one of 7 universities in the United States to receive funding. He put the nonprofits back to work, and we also took groups of students down for surveying and coming up with ideas that could be implemented. The important one that came out of that studio was Lafitte Corridor, which connects Tremé neighborhood to the French Quarter. And as we speak today, there are bicycles going up and down that canal. It was a canal and railway at the time, and when we did the survey, it was nothing but weeds. You couldn't even see anything through the middle of New Orleans. So I think that's one of the things an actionable thing that came out of the studios. I'd like to think that students coming out of the program at UMKC had social action and civic duty, that those were 2 things that were sort of central to how they approached going out into the world and being professionals.
You worked closely with Ted Seligson.
Mm-hmm.
Can you share some of your memories of his contributions to University of Missouri Kansas City and the AIA?
Ted he came 2 years after the program had started and had started with the second-year studio all the way through. He was there 30 years, and so I was there 32 years. He was a mentor. He cared passionately about teaching, and he was also multidisciplinary, which when we started considering doing urban planning and design, he was right there and said, urban design is important. This is a discipline that we need to pay attention to. And he was a mentor. I mean, I don't think I would have I might not have gone through with being an FAIA, because Ted was constantly reminding me that that's what I needed to do. And he was a huge supporter. He was also part of the team when we did these giant group projects. It took his involvement, and yeah, he's the father of architecture, right, in Kansas City, and to have had someone of his stature associated with the program all those years, as well as a friend. Ted Seligson, huge supporter, and he has endowed a lecture series that has been interrupted, I would say, by the pandemic. However, before the pandemic and before I left, we had Elizabeth Diller. We had a number of international lecturers in, and that was his intention. So moving forward, I think there's the profession, and I think Kansas City will be hosting some really good lectures that Ted had a central part in making sure would happen. And he knew it took, as he would say, dough. And so he put his money where his passion was, and that was to make sure that Kansas City had the best connection on an international and national scale. And scholarship money for students. Students were always central, and what he thought about.
What do you see for the future of architectural education?
Yeah, boy, if we ever had a crystal ball. It's changed so much in my career. I mean, I've gone from parallel bars and T-squares and triangles. And, you know, the computer is revolutionizing. I don't know where AI is going to take the profession. I think as young architects starting out, I start with always be flexible and always be comfortable with change, and it's hard. I think the other thing, as I said, don't be compliant, and optimism. Ted always said that optimism you had to have it if you were going to be a great designer. And so what I say is strap on optimism. We have so many things to solve in the 21st century, and we have to be optimistic to think of really good solutions to those major issues. I think the last ones, I always told my first year students that ideas are free. And to attack it like that. Free, and then it's a hard one to say where we go. I think the other thing I would tell young architects is expand your connections with other disciplines. The problems are so immense that it's going to take a planner, or it's going to take a statistician, or it's going to take an environmentalist. And I think that architects are trained to listen. And so if you're listening to those other disciplines and really think about being multidisciplinary, which is hard. It's hard work. It was hard work in the studio, and sometimes it probably can be equally hard in the profession.
Good words. As a connector, I wanted to talk about your contributions to the architecture profession, and you were elevated to a fellow in the AIA in 2011. How has membership in the AIA affected your career?
You know, the AIA has always been there, and I think being a part of the organization has set an example for the students. I'm talking to you now, and you're a great AIA member. I think that that example was really important. The other thing is that I think the AIA definitely supported me in many ways. I can remember when we had a giant fire in Epperson House, and the first people to call me were AIA members. What can we do? The other thing is that they were always there every year. I know you probably did the same thing in Survey of the Design Professions, where I would send you out to do an interview with architects. There were years when I thought, oh, is this a good idea? Or, you know, and the students would always say, oh, that was my favorite part. And so being able to reach out to professionals and have students interview, I think was really important. They would come back with stories like, oh, they had fancy chairs and it was so scary. But that was their first introduction as a first year student, and I think that's really important to sort of connect for them to see. what real professionals do.
You were elevated to a fellow in the AIA in 2011. How has membership in the AIA affected your career?
Yes, being a fellow in the American Institute of Architects here in Kansas City, there are only 3 of us. And I think there's 180 members going way back to the 1800s. And those 3 women, me included, have only occurred in the last few years. So we have catching up to do. I think the profession, when I went into it at Kansas State University, there was maybe only 7 of us. Now we're half or more. And so the profession has profoundly changed in terms of gender. I think we have more work to do when it comes to African American and Hispanic representation. And that's something that I'd like to think that I was a part of in training a good number of very successful students as they've progressed through the profession.
Well, Joy, thank you so much for your time today. I'd like to say thank you on behalf of the AIA and our Legacy and Leaders series. This has been a wonderful chat with you, and look forward to much more from you with all everything you've done and the things that have come out of your profession and educational experience and just everything. So thank you so much.